Hey everybody, it's Justin with Sillage Scents. Today I have got an amazing list of 10 fragrances that are the best bang for your buck imaginable. There's a lot of clones in this video. There's also several that aren't clones, but they're just priced fantastically. It's just unbelievable what you can get for a very low price. Before we get started, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel. I've got videos coming out every couple days, and I hope that you will join us by going ahead and clicking that beautiful button. Also, let me know in the comments as we go, what are some fragrances you would add to this list? Those that are just an amazing value, amazing bang for your buck with good quality. I'd love to dialogue with you a little bit down in the comments. All right, here we go. I think first thing, got a light frying my head over here, but I think it's good. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. We have first up, this is one I picked up the slightly older brother of this one a couple years ago and absolutely loved it. And this is one I've been aware of, but I finally just picked it up recently. This is Coach for Men Platinum. And this is a beautiful fragrance. It's going to remind you a lot of a very fruity version of something like Sauvage EDP. And so it's got some beautiful pineapple and other fruits in the opening, but then it's got that sort of peppery, slightly metallic Sauvage vibe that's kind of in the heart of the fragrance. So even if you don't love Sauvage, the fact that it's got this bright fruitiness, I think makes it an incredibly versatile fragrance that does give you that incredibly mass-pleasing blue fragrance DNA from Sauvage. I think it's even more attractive. The only downside is when comparing it to something like Sauvage, which is a nuclear performer, this one's probably like a 6 or 7 hour fragrance. Not quite as loud as Sauvage, but man, it smells amazing. And I recommend it. You can get 100 ml of this, usually if you get a tester like I did, for under $40 on discounters. All right, next up, I'm going to go with another one that is a new pickup for me. This is a clone of Prada L'Homme. And so Prada L'Homme, it's been called the king of office fragrances. It is a fragrance that is centered around iris, but many iris fragrances are sort of warm, spicy, and they're centered around iris in sort of a very cozy, cold weather, warm, spicy kind of way. This one is an all year round fragrance, and rather than being that sort of thick, heavy, creamy virus with some warm spices, this one is actually much more of a fresh iris, not violet, much more of a fresh iris that's got some fresh spice. It's got some black pepper. It's got a little bit of cardamom, and it's got that iris, but this time it's still what I would call a lipsticky iris, but it's not as heavy. It's not as thick. It's not as creamy, but it's still got that distinct iris quality that you're going to be familiar with. And you can get this for less than $30 on a website called Maison de Arabia. I'll put a link in the description. This is not a sponsored video. It's just a great pickup. And that's the only website I've seen it on consistently, and they seem to have a better price than everybody else. So this is called Riffs Avant-Garde, or Riffs, I guess, Avant-Garde, and it is a really good clone of Prada L'Homme. It's maybe a touch spicier than Prada L'Homme, and I would say that the actual iris, the quality of the fragrance is not up to par with, of course, the Prada, but it's an incredible value for what you pay for it. All right, next up, this one is another clone, whereas the first two are perfectly suitable for warm weather. This one I would definitely say is more of a cold weather fragrance. This is Proud of You Absolute by Fragrance World, and as you could probably guess by looking at this bottle, this is a clone of Stronger With You Absolute. And so it's basically like Stronger With You, which is sort of a sweet, warm, chestnut, very vanillic fragrance, but this one has some booziness that's added to it. I mean, whenever you just smell it right off the atomizer, it basically smells a lot like Stronger With You with rum. So if you like the Stronger With You fragrances, or even something like, there's been a number of fragrances that have come out with a similar fragrance profile, even something like the Azzaro, the Most Wanted Parfum, something like that, that sort of sweet, vanillic, chestnut, very heavy, long-lasting fragrance. This one is a banger. It's, I think I got this one for around the low 30s or so, probably off of Triple Traders. And if you like that DNA, it's long lasting, it's very close to Stronger With You Absolute, and I think it's an incredible value. All right, we're going to switch back to something that's a little fresher, a little more appropriate for warmer weather, really all year round. This one is a very versatile fragrance. This one is a clone of Creed's Green Irish Tweed, and this is one that most of you will be familiar with. This is Très Nuit by ARMAF. This is an insane value. This is usually about a $20 fragrance. Even on Amazon, it's usually around that price. It's a very good clone of Green Irish Tweed. It's a pretty, performs pretty well, especially for a $20 fragrance. It's about a 6 or 7 hour fragrance on me. It might be a touch, just a touch sweeter than Green Irish Tweed, but this is awesome. You've got lemon verbena, you've got lemon, you've got ambroxan that is sort of mimicking ambergris. You've got a little bit of a fresh iris in here as well. It's a pretty green smelling fragrance, or it's, sort of lightly green smelling fragrance with a lot of freshness, a lot of cleanness. It's a really great pickup for 20 bucks. All right, next up, this one, we're going to go back to more of a cold weather fragrance. This one is a rich, weighty, gourmand fragrance. It's not a clone, but it is an amazing value for, I think, around the $25 to $30 price range. This is Pepe Jean's Celebrate. And so this one is either Celebrate or Celebration. I believe it's Celebrate, but I'll get it right whenever I write the name in the video. This one is an awesome gourmand fragrance. You've got a black currant in the opening. You've got a cacao, kind of a chocolatey note. To me, it actually reminds me of almost like a cocoa butter, like a white chocolate, and then that black currant gives me a little bit of like a berry vibe. And so you've got that very rich, gourmand, chocolatey or white chocolatey kind of fragrance. It's a very, to me, surprisingly, a very good performing fragrance. When I first got it, I thought, man, this only lasts a few hours, but I was going nose blind. I picked it up again 6 months later, and this thing is like an 8+ hour fragrance on me easily. Pepe Jean's Celebrate, awesome gourmand fragrance for under $30 that I think you'd really love. All right, next up, this one is not a clone. It's not by a clone house, but it is heavily inspired by Versace Eros. This is Guess 1981 Los Angeles. And so this is kind of a slightly more ambery, slightly less loud version of Eros. And so like the mintiness in the top is not quite as strong. The sweetness is not quite as overpowering. I would even say it's a little closer to Eros EDP than the EDT, but it's still going to get you probably 85% close, maybe 90% close to Versace Eros. And this is a $20 fragrance at the rack stores. Even on Amazon, you can get it for about $20. A great pickup, pretty versatile. And if you like Eros, you're definitely going to dig that one, and it's way cheaper. All right, next up, this one's interesting because it's not a clone, but it is by kind of a historically well-known clone house. This is LATTAFA's QAED Al FURSAN. And this one's a pretty versatile fragrance. I would say you could wear it all year long, and it is basically a pineapple bomb. It's, to me, the strongest pineapple note that I have in a fragrance, and that's like 80% of the fragrance, but it's also got some darkness that comes from some oud and some woodsiness, and so it's pretty unique in that regard. And this is a very strong fragrance. It's very, it projects very well. You've got some very heavy sillage. It's pretty good as far as longevity is concerned. It's probably about an 8-hour fragrance. And this is another one that you can get for around $20, maybe on up to the low 20s, even on Amazon, fragrance discounters. QAED Al FURSAN, a banger by LATTAFA. That is an incredible value. All right, next up. This one I would call a clone, although it's not by a clone house. This one is basically ombre leather with a little bit more sweetness and a little fruitiness in the top, which will remind you a little bit of Tuscan leather. This is a killer fragrance that you can get if you find it at the rack stores. Burlington's where I've got mine. I've seen it at Burlington a lot. I've seen it even at Ross, Marshall's, places like that. This is Ben Sherman Signature, the original Ben Sherman Signature. If you like ombre leather by Tom Ford, you will like this fragrance. I actually prefer it to ombre leather. I know that sounds insane, but that little extra sweetness and that little fruitiness in the opening. There might even be a touch more cardamom in this one as there is in ombre leather. It's still probably 90% close to ombre leather, but to me it's just a touch more wearable, and ombre leather is pretty daggone wearable. This would be a great evening fragrance all year round, or it'd be a great cold weather fragrance even during the day, during fall and winter. This is a banger, Ben Sherman Original Signature. I just love that gorgeous leather accord in this fragrance. Okay, next up, I'm going to go with another new pickup, new to me, and I think it's a fairly new release. This one is another clone by Fragrance World, and it's a clone of a Guerlain fragrance that I haven't tried the original. I have another one in the line. I've got Guerlain Ideal EDP or L'Homme EDP. This one is a clone of Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Extreme. And you can tell by the bottle exactly what they're cloning, because, I mean, it looks almost exactly like Ideal Extreme. And this fragrance surprised me, and from what I understand, the original is this way as well. But the EDP, it's all about that cherry and that almond. It's a very sort of warm, sweet fragrance. This one is a little more about woods. I mean, you've still got the almond, of course. You've got some warm spices. You've got some sweetness. But in the dry down, the mid and the dry down, I just get a bunch of woods and spice. That's what I get in the dry down. That's what lasts in the dry down. It's very good. It reminds me a little bit, just a little bit, of the dry down of Spice Bomb. That sort of cedar, woodsy smell with some lingering sweet spiciness. That is what this one gives me. About 80% of it is sort of sweet, spicy woodsiness. It's a really great fragrance, and one, I'll probably do a video comparing the two, the Guerlain and this one, just because I was so surprised at how different they are, even though they're in the same line. At least this is supposed to be a really good clone of Extreme, which is in the same line. All right, last fragrance in this video. This one is another clone of a very unique niche fragrance. This is Paris Corner's EMIR Celestial, and it is a clone of Ganymede. Ganymede is a fragrance that's sort of known for, it has a very kind of earthy, kind of mineral quality that will remind you a little bit of like wet rocks. And so they get that from some saffron and some orange that kind of mixes together. You've got only a little sweetness from the orange. You've got saffron, you've got leather, you've got some woodsy notes that kind of contribute to that. I wouldn't even say it's a leathery smelling fragrance, but that leather accord mixing with the saffron gives you something that really smells mostly kind of like wet rocks or clay or something like that. It's very unique, and it's not for everybody. This one and Ganymede, they're just something that I will say was an acquired taste. The first few times I wore it, I did not like it. But what I've been doing is mixing this one and a blue fragrance. I'm not going to get into it, but one that is a very inexpensive clone of another blue fragrance, and I mix them together, and it gives me something absolutely beautiful that reminds me of Acqua di Gio Profondo, because the mineral quality from Profondo is very similar to the mineral quality from this one. So a cheap clone of Profondo mixed with this one gives me something very close to Profondo. If mineral clay wet rocks sounds good to you with a little bit of saffron texture, a little bit of orange, check out EMIR Celestial, and I think you're really going to dig it. It's a fantastic clone of Ganymede, although I don't have Ganymede. Everything I've seen is that it is just a spot-on, like 95% similar clone. All right, so these have all been incredible value fragrances, either because they're cloning a much more expensive fragrance, or in the case of like the Coach or the Pepe Jeans or the Ben Sherman, not even clone houses, but a fragrance that is great quality with a great fragrance for a very low price. But again, let me know in the comments, what would you add to the list? And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I'm Justin. This has been Sillage Scents.